to be Vice President Biden and Senator Kamala Harris as LGBTQ plus vote director. And it's so hard to follow the chairman, Chairman Perez. Thank you so much for those words. It's also hard to precede Joe Solmonese, who is doing a fantastic job with this convention. And of course, my good friend Earl and Matt, who are just leading us forward each and every day. I'm here to talk about where we're at as a community and who we have as a leader leading us into the next fight for equality. It goes without saying, but this convention is historic for so many reasons, some out of our control. But what wasn't our control was the values that the Democratic Party has always espoused. We have the most LGBTQ delegates ever represented at the Democratic Convention and the most trans and gender nonconforming delegates represented at the convention. And that says a lot. It also says a lot that we also have the most pro-equality platform and most pro-equality agenda by a presidential nominee and vice presidential nominee in history. And I think that when you are talking to supporters and voters over the next 76 days, please lean into that. Talk about how much of a champion Joe Biden has been his entire life for LGBTQ people, listening to us whenever we told him and others that our government wasn't fighting for us the way we knew it should. He listened when it mattered and fought for us when it mattered. So did Kamala Harris. And we're going to go into the White House on January 20th, 2021 with a champion who's going to take us through the next fight. So I'm here just to talk about some of the top lines on what a Biden-Harris administration will mean for LGBTQ people. First, it's protecting LGBTQ youth. It is banning conversion therapy throughout the country. It is ending youth homelessness. We know too many LGBTQ youth face housing insecurity, and we have to do something about it. It is restoring the protections for trans Americans. It is ending the ban trans service members that this administration has fought so hard for. It is restoring healthcare protection for trans people and getting our government fighting for trans people again. It is passing the Equality Act. We know passing the Equality Act means so much for our community, and I'm so very excited to have a President Biden sign the Equality Act into law. And it's making LGBTQ equality a priority around the globe again. We know what happens when our country isn't leading anymore on equality. And it's so much more. And I would just encourage everyone to go and read the plan at joebiden.com/LGBTQ and encourage people to sign up there as well. We have to get Joe Biden elected. This is very personal for me. Donald Trump started this campaign mocking people with disabilities, attacking LGBTQ people, denigrating Black and brown people. Our lives depend on it. We're depending on each other to talk to every neighbor, every friend, every family member over the next 76 days. The chairman said, wake up asking yourself, what have you done today to get Joe Biden and Kamala Harris elected president and vice president? And on November 3rd at night at 11 o'clock p.m., I'm hoping we can celebrate together virtually the election of the 46th president of the United States and know that we are pushing our community in the right direction. I'm glad to be out for Biden with you all, and thank you so much. And I'm so happy to turn it back over to Earl.
Well, I have the pleasure of introducing to you someone we've heard about for the last couple of days, who's responsible for this wonderful virtual convention, Joe Solmonese. He's the CEO of the Democratic National Convention Committee. But I know Joe from another part of his progressive work that he's been doing for many years. He's worked in a number of progressive organizations, including Planned Parenthood Federation of America, Emily's List, and where I know him from the Human Rights Campaign. He's a great leader. He's a progressive, and I can't think of anyone to lead this convention better than Joe. Joe, thank you for all you've done and will continue to do for our community.
Thanks, Earl, and thank you all for having me join you this morning. It's privilege to be here. And of course, I just want to thank Earl Folks for his leadership and his friendship to me over the years. And as an advocate for our community within the Democratic Party, I wish that all of you could be here with me today in Milwaukee. But as you have seen over the last few months, unlike the Republican Party, we have really led our decision making in a way that is grounded in science and public health and what's in the best interest of our delegates and the people here in Milwaukee. And so we made the really difficult decision a few weeks ago to go to, as Earl mentioned, a virtual convention format. I will say that what seemed like a daunting task a couple of weeks ago, I think is turning out to be a much more inclusive experience than any of us had thought. The number of people who are joining our caucus and council meetings and all of the other events that we're having over the course of the week is just record-breaking and exponentially bigger than any previous convention. And so I think that's important. And I think it's important as we make the case to this country for Vice President Biden. One of the things that he has said is that he has always seen our community as a part of the fabric of America, and it was his expectation that we would be part of the fabric of this convention. And so you have seen us in important conversations over the last few days about healthcare reform and gun safety, and you'll continue to see tomorrow night, tonight rather, I've lost track of the days, Senator Baldwin and Mayor Pete Buttigieg as well. So I'm very excited about the opportunity we've had to present both Vice President Biden and Senator Harris to the country and to really lift up the values of the Democratic Party in the way that we have been able to. But the other thing I wanted to mention is the platform. And as you heard earlier, it is the most inclusive platform of any Democratic convention in history. I want to thank personally Megan Stabler and Lillian Tamayo, who I had asked to be on the committee and who did incredibly heroic work offering, I think, 26 resolutions to the platform to be included and to ensure that we were named all throughout the platform, and we were very much a part of the fabric of that document, in particular in the areas of healthcare expansion and criminal justice reform. And when people ask me about, is it symbolically important? Yes, but substantively, it really creates the framework for a set of expectations that we will have of this administration come January. I remember, as Earl mentioned, we met when I was at the Human Rights Campaign, and in 2008, when President Obama was elected, we presented him with 84 executive orders that we asked for him to begin enacting on day one, outside of the legislative agenda, outside of the things that we hope to get done through Congress, like Don't Ask, Don't Tell repeal and the passage of the hate crimes bill, 84 things that he had the opportunity to do by virtue of executive order. And so as President Biden and Vice President Harris form a new government, and they build new infrastructures in places like the Department of Health and Human Services and the State Department and HUD and other key agencies that impact our community. I know that this community and with Earl's leadership and others, we will have representation in those conversations and in that infrastructure, and that the work of this platform will really set the stage for what it is that we hope to accomplish in this administration. So again, I'm sorry that you all can't be here. Hope you enjoy tonight's show. I'm really excited about the Vice President's remarks. And again, thank you all for having me.
Hi, everyone. This is Van Beechler, chair of the Idaho Democratic Party and vice chair of the DNC's LGBTQ caucus. I'm coming to you from the gem state of Idaho, and we're excited to be here. I'm going to introduce Sharice Davids, U.S. Representative from Kansas. Sharice Davids is currently serving Kansas's 3rd Congressional District in Congress, a proud graduate of Leavenworth High School. Sharice was the first person in her family to attend college. She worked her way through Johnson County Community College to Cornell Law School, juggling multiple jobs to put herself through school. Sharice went on to work in economic and community development on Native American reservations, helping tribes to create programs and initiatives for growth. This work inspired her to apply for the White House Fellowship Program, where she served under President Barack Obama. In 2018, Sharice was elected to represent Kansas' 3rd District, becoming one of the first 2 Native American women ever to serve in Congress. She has spent her first term in office working to tackle the issues most important to Kansas families, including strengthening our public schools, lowering the cost of healthcare and prescription drugs, and making sure the government is working for the people, not special interests. Please welcome Representative Sharice Davids.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Vice Chair Van Beechler, for that introduction. I really appreciate it. And I'm so excited to be with you all here today for the 4th and final day of the Democratic Convention as we unite around sending Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to the White House. I'm Sharice Davids. I represent Kansas's 3rd Congressional District. I am also proud to be one of the first 2 Native American women in Congress and the first openly LGBTQ member of Congress from Kansas. And then I'm also proud to be part of one of the most diverse freshman classes ever to come into Congress. And, in 2018, we had the opportunity to help reset expectations about who runs for office, about who we support as candidates, and who we elect to represent us. And it's a really amazing thing to see that our country was able to come together to do that, and that Kansas got to be part of that historic midterm. I am also equally proud of all that we've accomplished since being sworn into office. We've passed legislation in the House to lower the skyrocketing cost of healthcare and prescription drugs, to tackle our gun violence problem, because it's truly a crisis, and also to root out the corruption in Washington. And then, very importantly, and something that I'm so proud of, is that we passed the Equality Act. This bill would enshrine the rights of LGBTQ Americans into the Civil Rights Act. It's something that's obviously so close to me and so many people that I love, but it's important to our country, because if enacted, the Equality Act would prohibit discrimination against LGBTQ folks in the areas of employment, healthcare, housing, education. And I truly believe that this is the kind of legislation that can save lives. Unfortunately, the Equality Act, like so many other bills, languish on Mitch McConnell's desk. It's why this election is so important. Because if we want all of the accomplishments the House has made during this Congress to actually become law, we need to hold the House, we need to flip the Senate, and then we need to send Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to the White House. This truly is, and I know you've heard this before, and I know you believe this as well, the most consequential election of our lifetimes. We're in the middle of multiple national crises right now, from the pandemic that's threatening the health and well-being and safety of every single one of us, to the economic security that our families are feeling the strain of. It's important to recognize and acknowledge as well that we're in the middle of a long overdue conversation and reckoning about the systemic racism and injustice in this country. And sadly, the LGBTQ community is part of those that are most vulnerable to the effects of the coronavirus pandemic. Meanwhile, we've got an administration that has done nothing but roll back protections for LGBTQ folks and has used rhetoric that will divide us and demean us and dehumanize us. We can't stand for that. What we need is real leadership in the White House that's going to fight for every single person in this country, not just the select few. A White House that's going to deliver real progress on issues that are facing this country. We need Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Joe Biden has been a leader on LGBTQ issues throughout his entire career. His campaign is about restoring the soul of this nation, and it absolutely includes LGBTQ folks and our rights in that. With Joe Biden in the White House, we have a pro-equality White House to work with a pro-equality House. And when we flip the Senate, we will have a pro-equality Senate. And we can ensure that the Equality Act finally becomes law. We can make sure that we protect LGBTQ youth and make sure that we have leadership in this country internationally on LGBTQ equality and rights. The campaign, of course, looks very different this year. All of our campaigns do. But it's all hands on deck. I know you know that because I know you're already doing so much of the work. I know you're going to continue to organize and phone bank and text bank and do all of the things that we need to do every single day between now and November 3rd to win this election. And I'm looking forward to being in that with you, to working hard with you to make sure that we get our country back on track. And I just appreciate so much how much work you all have done. It's part of the reason that I get to serve in Congress. And I'm going to keep fighting for you because I know you're going to keep fighting for our country. Thank you so much, and have a good rest of the convention.
Hello, I'm back again. This time I have the opportunity to introduce to you the governor of the great state of Colorado, Jared Polis. He's the 43rd governor of Colorado. And before that, he was governor. He was in Congress where I met him. He served in Congress for 10 years. He's a businessman. He was the first LGBT person to have children, same-sex marriage, who have kids while in Congress. And he was an example of leadership. I want to say something more personal. I've been watching Governor Polis on television during the coronavirus pandemic. And I've seen him provide leadership that should be coming from Washington, but is instead coming from Denver. He's a great governor, and he's shown leadership after being the governor for only 1 year, actually going on 2 years. He stepped up to the plate and he's leading his community. And I want to welcome Governor Polis to the LGBT Caucus.
Thank you so much. I am so excited to be with everybody. You know, I've been attending DNC convention since 1992. I was a 17-year-old volunteer. Couldn't have been more excited. I've had the opportunity to be at every one since then. And in a way, we're all together in this one. We might not be in Milwaukee, but we're across the country reaching out through technology, showing solidarity with one another for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. You know, when I was first elected to Congress, there were only two other LGBT members of Congress, Barney Frank and Tammy Baldwin, and it was a novelty at the time. It was something new. We started a equality caucus, the three of us. There weren't enough of them with two to start a caucus. Now that caucus is one of the biggest caucuses in the Democratic Party, and I can't even count the number of LGBT members of Congress. I honestly couldn't tell you if it's 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever it is. It's going to be even more next session with some great LGBT nominees from a number of states. You know, Colorado in many ways has been a microcosm of the country's evolution on equality. As you know, in 1992, we famously passed a amendment that we were called the hate state. It prevented local governments from banning discrimination based on sexual orientation. But before that, in fact, in 1975, in Boulder, Colorado, the town that I was born in, same year I was born, Boulder, Colorado actually did the first same-sex marriages in the entire country. We had a county clerk that married several gay couples before a court order stopped her. It's been a long ride for all of us. Now we have closer to parity and representation in Congress. More importantly, in Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, we have champions of the Equality Act. Finally, to end legal discrimination against the LGBTQ community. We have leaders in Joe Biden and Kamala Harris who will really understand the walk we walk and know that they stand alongside us. Kamala Harris and Joe Biden will be a force to move forward rather than the backwards progress of the last 4 years, excluding our transgender Americans from serving in the military, silencing our voices in the census by preventing us from being counted. Time after time after time, the Trump administration has shown themselves to be no friend of the LGBTQ community. And what an alternative we have with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, the opportunity to move forward with true equality, no matter who you are, no matter who you love. They're going to have an administration that looks like America, looks like who America is from a racial perspective, from who we are and who we love. I couldn't be more excited to be supporting Joe Biden for president of the United States. You know, it's important that as leaders in the LGBT community, we get out the word about the importance of voting, right? And we make sure that anybody on the fence votes the right way. We all have the friends, the network to be leaders. Here you are at the Democratic National Convention showing your support for a historically important ticket. But this is just the beginning of the work, right? Right after this, we're going to make sure that our friends, our family, everybody we like, we know is voting this year, is voting for Joe Biden, knows the difference between the candidates, can't sit on the sidelines. It's simply too important. And that's the message I bring you today. We've made great progress. Colorado, from the hate state to the first state with an openly gay man elected governor, to a state that is fully inclusive, employment protection. This year, we banned the trans panic defense. We made it easier for transgender Coloradans to change their birth certificates and identification documents. And we represent a Colorado for all, no matter who you are, who you love. And you know what? Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and America for all. No matter who you are, no matter who you love, no matter where you're from, no matter your age, no matter your income, there's a great place for you in America alongside all of us, fighting for justice, fighting for a better vision and a more inclusive vision of the future. So I look forward to joining you in the trenches to do everything that I can to elect my friend Joe Biden the next president of the United States. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Governor Polis. I have the great pleasure of introducing to you the governor of the great state of Oregon. Kate Brown is the 38th governor of Oregon. She served from 2009 to 15 as the Oregon Secretary of State. She's had 17 years in the state legislature. She is a career politician that's been doing the right thing for many years. That's why she keeps getting reelected. But more importantly, I've been watching her on the news the last couple of months as she's been dealing with the government intervention during the Black Lives Matter protests in Portland, and she successfully negotiated to keep government armed forces out of the streets of Portland so that the people in Portland can express their constitutional right to show dissatisfaction with the systems that exist. She's showing great leadership, and she deserves to be governor of a great state. Thank you very much for coming on with us, Governor Brown.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm absolutely excited to join all of you today, and really pleased to have watched the first 3 days of the convention and looking forward to hearing Joe tonight. I am so proud of the work that we are doing in Oregon to ensure full equality for our community. My Department of Education instituted safe schools policy 2 weeks before the Obama administration. We allow birth certificates to be updated to reflect your gender identity, and our DMV issues gender-neutral driver's licenses. We are also really proud of the work to create an LGBTQ liaison at our Department of Veterans Affairs. And that's not all. Our Oregon Health Plan, we ensure the full complement of health services for all of our residents. And I am so proud of that work. We are truly breaking barriers here in the great state of Oregon. But I have to tell you, there's still a lot more work to do across the country. And it would be so much easier if we had a federal administration that was a full partner in this work. A president and a vice president who believed in our humanity. A president and a vice president who were willing to ensure that everyone, regardless of who they love or how they identify, was treated with dignity under the law. Well, my friends, we have an opportunity to send those folks to the White House. We have an opportunity this November to vote like our lives depend on it, and to put Joe Biden and Kamala Harris in the White House. Our very own Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have released a sweeping plan to advance LGBTQ equality that will protect LGBTQ people from discrimination, support LGBTQ youth, protect individuals from violence, and work to end the epidemic of violence against the trans community, particularly our trans women of color. In addition, they will fight to expand access to high-quality healthcare for LGBT individuals and ensure fair treatment in our criminal justice system. This is so amazing, but none of this is possible without you. You absolutely need to vote this fall like your life and our world depends on it, because it truly does. I know that each one of us can make a difference, that every single vote matters. I literally won my first election for the state house by a mere 7 votes. I am living proof that your vote can make a difference. Without those 7 votes, I would not be here today. So I want to encourage you to encourage your friends, your family, all of your community to vote, because it can truly help us build a better America for everyone. So be safe out there. Thanks for the great work and have a great day.
All right, I'm back, and I'm here to introduce the Attorney General of Massachusetts, Maura Healey. Maura Healey began serving as Massachusetts Attorney General in January 2015 and is leading the People's Law Firm as the People's Lawyer, continuing a career spent fighting for justice and equal rights. For 7 years prior to her election, Maura helped lead the Attorney General's office, ultimately overseeing more than half of the office's 500 employees. She began as a chief of the Civil Rights Division and went on to direct 2 of the office's most prominent divisions, the Public Protection and Advocacy Bureau and the Business and Labor Bureau. Earlier in her career, Maura was a prosecutor in Middlesex County and a litigation partner at WilmerHale, one of Boston's most prestigious law firms. She attended Harvard College, where she was the captain of the basketball team, and spent 2 years as a 5'4" starting point guard on a professional basketball team in Austria. She attended Northeastern University School of Law. She is the first openly gay Attorney General in the United States. Please welcome Maura Healey.
Hey, hi everybody. I want to thank the Vice Chair. I want to thank the Chair. I want to thank everybody from the LGBTQ plus Caucus. It's also an honor and great to see my friend, Governor Kate Brown, and great to be with all of you. This is such an exciting moment. And, you know, as the nation's first openly LGBTQ Attorney General, I really want to thank those on the call who helped make that possible. And, you know, I sit today, actually, I'm the Massachusetts Attorney General. I grew up in New Hampshire. So special shout out to Ray Buckley, our party chair here, and also Representative Chris Pappas. I happened to be in New Hampshire this morning at my parents' farmhouse. But let me tell you why I'm so excited. Because Joe Biden is the most pro-equality presidential candidate in history, and he's got a long record of fighting for us. He believes and understands that every human being should be treated with respect and dignity and able to live without fear no matter who they love. Now, I saw this firsthand as a lawyer and chief of civil rights. I brought a challenge to the Defense of Marriage Act. And I remember when Joe Biden declared his historic support of marriage equality on Meet the Press in 2012 and what that meant in terms of our case, because at that point then, the Obama-Biden administration came over to our side and fought hard for equality with us in the courts. I also want to note that it's my colleague, former colleague, Kamala Harris, who as Attorney General authored and led the amicus briefing in support of states in that very case. So for me, this is very personal, and I've seen up close the commitment that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris bring to the fight for equality. And we know Trump and Pence have given a license to hate against members of our community. And they've rolled back critical protections for our community. They were the ones that blocked, of course, transgender people from being able to openly serve their country, denying people access to critical health care under the guise of religious freedom, proposing policies that allowed federally funded homeless shelters to turn away transgender people. And, you know, time and time again, we've seen the harm, the devastation of this Trump-Pence administration, which really has been about a systematic attempt to undo the progress President Obama and Vice President Biden made. As Governor Brown mentioned, Joe Biden's released a sweeping plan to advance LGBTQ plus equality. And I recommend everybody read it, become familiar with it, and talk to your friends about it. Among other things, we know the plan includes the Equality Act, which will ensure equal rights under the law for LGBTQ plus Americans and will guarantee that LGBTQ plus individuals are protected under existing civil rights laws. Won't that be nice for a change from the federal government? Biden will make enactment of the Equality Act during his first 100 days as president a top legislative priority. And I know he's going to work with his cabinet to make sure that all across government, our government is there to protect the rights of LGBTQ plus individuals. And I'll say another thing. You know how important those courts are. You know how important it is to nominate and appoint federal officials and judges at all levels, including the Supreme Court, who both represent the diversity of the American people, including the LGBTQ plus community, but also understand that their obligation is to uphold the Constitution, enforce our civil rights. And I know that he'll ensure that we give the agencies charged with enforcement of non-discrimination laws the funds they need to really pursue this obligation. Look, we know that there are 11 million or more eligible LGBTQ plus voters across this country, and 57 million more pro-equality voters. So this just underscores the importance of our community in the electoral process. Now, Trump won Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania by under 80,000 votes, a mere 80,000 votes. So turnout from our community is vital to a Biden-Harris victory this fall. My call, my charge to all of you is to get out, talk to friends, talk to family, talk to neighbors, anybody you went to school with, work with, make sure they're registered, make sure they're out there, and make sure that they are voting for our community. I could not be more proud as a member of our community to support the Biden-Harris ticket, and I look forward. You know, it was referenced as a basketball player. I used to do that in another life, to working my tail off with all of you over the next 75 days. Be well, everybody. Thanks again, and let's go Democrats. They're registered, make sure they're out there, and make sure that they are voting for our community. I could not be more proud as a member of our community to support the Biden-Harris ticket, and I look forward. You know, it was referenced as a basketball player. I used to do that in another life, to working my tail off with all of you over the next.
Hi, everyone. I am back here to introduce American actor B.D. Wong. B.D. Wong was born and raised in San Francisco, California. Made his Broadway debut in M. Butterfly. He's the only actor to be honored with the Tony Award, Drama Desk Award, Outer Critics Circle Award, Clarence Derwent Award, and the Theater World Award for the same performance. He starred in the television series All American Girl and has made guest appearances on Sesame Street, my son's favorite, and The X-Files. He was in the off-Broadway musical revival of A Thousand's Cheer and followed with a critically acclaimed performance as Linus in the revival of You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown. He returned to Law & Order SVU, which is my favorite show, so I'm super excited about this, and is now starring in the revival of Stephen Sodom's Pacific Overtures. Please welcome B.D. Wong.
I'm so sorry. Technically, I wasn't exactly sure that I was on, and here I am. I am so proud and happy to be here as a member of this community. I hope that you're all doing well. I have been sitting here thinking about how best to galvanize people and get them to vote and to get out there and get the word out there. And you know, it's hard for me to believe that the people that are actually watching me right now are people that need to be convinced of anything, but there are thousands and thousands, millions of other people out in the country. And it is our job to figure out how to reach them. I will just tell you personally that I was absolutely crushed in 2016 at the outcome of that election. And that was the beginning of almost 4 years of a decline, a slow decline in my American mood as I continue to watch the degradation of the morality and the integrity and the lack of leadership in this country. And it was the March when we started quarantining in the lockdown for COVID-19 that I thought that there just could be nothing worse than this. And I'm saying this all because my husband and I, who were just kind of in this slow decline of mood, got to the kind of rock bottom. And I cannot be the only person who's describing this kind of feeling of being dragged through the mud. I feel like we all must be sharing that kind of energy. And then last night, Kamala Harris went and claimed her nomination as the first Black American, Asian American, and woman candidate for vice president. And a glimmer of hope emerged. And the reason why I'm saying this is because I think the reason why people may or may not need to be convinced out there that are not here watching us, but the ones that are out there, ones that really count, because they have lost faith, because they do not feel hope, because they feel that they have lost their way, that we've lost our way irreparably, and that we can never get back. And what good will it make to vote? What's the purpose of it? Why? And I don't see it that way. I'm full of energy and hope, and finally a feeling of purpose and a feeling of wanting to make a difference again in a way that I kind of lost my way a little bit. I felt a little bit beaten down. I felt a little bit defeatist about it all. And I don't think certainly not, hopefully in our lifetimes, will we ever see an administration like the one we have right now. It's world-class terrible. And I marvel at the daily machinations of it. And I thought perhaps that I might have given up. But Joe Biden has stepped in, and Joe Biden can be and will be the answer to all of that departure from the right way to do things in this country. I believe very strongly in his abilities to do so. I have met him and I trust him and I like him. And I believe this ticket is a very strong ticket. And I really want people to go outside of themselves. This has been said before and it will be said again today, to go reach outside of yourselves to your constituents, to your neighbors, to your friends, to your relatives even. And I guess one of the things that I think people find defeatist is, well, it's just so much. It's just too much. How could we ever really know? You can't know what you're really doing, what effect you're having on people when you're trying, when you're not giving up. But the only way is to try. The only way is to take positive energy, put some elbow grease into it, hit the streets, never stop talking about it. And you will be rewarded with the satisfaction that you will have done everything that you can. That's my great fear, is that I don't do everything that I can. And then the day after the election, I think, oh my gosh, I've just done that other thing more. What would have happened? And so that's why I'm here today to say, God bless you all for being here and believing in this wonderful battle that we are engaged in right now. It is a test of the true strength and integrity of human beings, that we can stand up for what we believe is right. So do that. Go vote. Go get everyone else to vote. Enjoy the rest of this convention. It's a spectacular one. It's one for the books, people. And I hope that you're well. Wear a mask, and I'll see you later. Thank you.
I have the opportunity to introduce someone who I've been watching from afar. She's a community organizer. She's a 35th generation New Mexican. That's a long time. I would say that she's been here longer than anyone else. She's a Native American. She's a member of Congress. Deb Haaland has been organizing communities for all of her life. She ran in 2014 as a lieutenant governor of the state of New Mexico. After that, she became the first Native American to become head of the state party for the Democratic Party, of any party. And she's used that as a platform to launch to become a member of Congress. She won in 2018, and she's one of the first Native American members of Congress. And we welcome her to the LGBTQ caucus. Deb Haaland.
Thank you so much, Chairman. It's such an honor to be here with all of you, with so many of my amazing colleagues, and the other co-chairs of the Equality Caucus, the Congressional Equality Caucus. What I can say right now is representation is everything. And thank you to everyone joining us from home. We face perhaps the most important election of our lifetimes, and the LGBTQ community cannot face another 4 years of targeted attacks and homophobic judges. There should never be a question about whether someone deserves justice and equality. The only question is about how quickly and with how much compassion we can provide it. And nobody knows that better than Joe Biden. Joe made it a priority to do the right thing and endorse marriage equality early. And I remember the day he did it. I was working on the campaign. And due to Joe's support, when I found out my daughter was queer, I didn't doubt that our government was working toward equality on her behalf. My daughter wasn't the one to tell me she was gay. I found out from someone else. And when I asked her why she didn't tell me, she asked me if I thought teenagers asked their parents to sit down so they could tell their parents they're heterosexual. And I said, probably not. So I get your point, right? We should always be able to live our lives. This should not be, we shouldn't have to set people down and tell them who we are. They can just be themselves. And my daughter, Soma, she's absolutely right. And with Joe Biden as our president, we can help create an environment where all LGBTQ youth have the confidence, the family support, and the sense of belonging that my daughter showed me that my daughter has, because I love her unconditionally. We need a president who will sign the Equality Act that we passed in the House last year to protect LGBTQ people against all forms of discrimination so that they can freely go to adoption centers, for example. Joe was part of the administration that undid Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and now we need him back in the White House to do it again and repeal the discriminatory military trans ban that was implemented by this president. We need a president that stands up for communities being targeted with violence. Our ticket stands on the most progressive platform in history and one that recognizes the epidemics of violence against Native American women, Black women, and transgender individuals. And most importantly, he recognizes the intersection of this violence and the unique threat that transgender women of color face. This crisis is not limited to our borders. In the face of discrimination and violence in countries around the world, LGBTQ people have sought asylum right here in our country, in the United States of America, where we should stand as their beacon of hope. When we elect Joe Biden, LGBTQ asylum seekers will stop languishing in detention centers and instead find the safe haven they deserve in our country, in a country that should have their backs and that should care deeply. We have work to do in our own communities across the Americas, and we'll be led by people like Angie Craig, Sharice Davids, Chris Pappas, Jared Polis, Kate Brown, and Tammy Baldwin. And they will all have a true ally in the White House when we elect Joe Biden, and of course, a true ally in our first woman vice president, Kamala Harris. Thank you so much. It's been such an honor to be here with all of you, and wishing everyone a terrific convention.
It is my great honor and pleasure to introduce to you today Dennis and Judy Shepard. They are the parents of Matthew Shepard and the founders of the Matthew Shepard Foundation. I met the Shepards when I was working at the Department of Justice in the Civil Rights Division in 2009, when in one of the very first pro-LGBTQ equality measures that the Obama-Biden administration implemented, the Matthew Shepard, James Byrd Jr. hate crimes Prevention Act was signed into law. And that happened largely due to the tireless efforts of Judy and Dennis Shepard, whose son Matthew was brutally attacked and murdered in 1998 outside of Laramie, Wyoming, in the home state where the Shepards are from. I got to know the Shepards after the law was signed. They were at the signing ceremony in the East Room. And when we worked to implement the Matthew Shepard Jamesboro Jr. Hate Crimes Prevention Act, we held trainings all over the country, bringing together law enforcement, community organizations, LGBTQ leaders, other civil rights organizations, so that we could educate both the communities and the law enforcement responsible for enforcing the law about this important laws provision, which for the first time gave nationwide protection to LGBTQ plus individuals, protecting them from hate-motivated violence. The Shepards were with us every step of the way. I would call Dennis or Judy and ask them to come to a training in Atlanta or in Chicago or in San Francisco, all over the country. They always said yes. They donated their time, they donated their energy, and their tireless commitment to ensuring that no one gets attacked like their son, Matthew, is something that has driven and motivated them. They founded the Matthew Shepard Foundation to honor his life and aspirations, and continue to work around the country and around the world to change hearts and minds. I remember Dennis saying, "No one is born with hate." And that's always resonated me as I've thought about the central message that we're trying to bring forward as a community as we strive for greater equality and inclusion in every aspect of our lives. Dennis and Judy, welcome.
Thank you. It's so good to see you again. It's been a few years.
Hey, Matt. Nice to see you. Thank you for inviting us to participate today. We're super anxious and thrilled to be here for Kamala and President Biden and Vice President Harris. Really looking forward to the new things we're going to see in the White House and Congress especially. We all have to remember to vote the down ticket. Let's not do that. Let's not forget to do that. Biden and Harris can't do much without Congress behind them. And we're here today to talk about how important elections really are, the difference they make. When Matt was killed, we had a friendlier administration. And then we went to an administration under George W. Bush that was not so friendly to our community. There was a lot of discussion about things that we needed, a lot of legislation passed against us, unnecessary, really hateful legislation to denigrate, to leave us behind, or even to shove us down. It was not going to work. It didn't work. We worked very hard grassroots level to try to make those changes. And when President Obama came into the picture, we felt we really could make a difference. We had a Congress that was behind us for 2 years. We got a lot done. We got hate crime legislation passed. Don't ask, don't tell. Marriage came about. Job protections got left behind. I found it very odd that now the military was the only place where jobs were federally protected. But we had work to do and we knew it. We knew there were many things left to be done. And we're hoping the new administration get the Equality Act through and the many other accompanying pieces of legislation to make the LGBTQ community equal across the board. We have to get out the vote. We have to go there. As Hillary said last night, this cannot be another coulda, woulda, shoulda election. This is critical. This is our future. This is everybody's future. Our children, our grandchildren, the future of our country depends on elections this time. So what are we doing to get the vote out? We're reminding people elections matter. One of the most important things I have seen, or one of the things that really brought out to me how important elections are, what a big difference it can make, is when this happened and now there's nothing. And now there's a fence around the White House. Elections matter. This is really important to all of us, our families, our neighbors. Our friends and our coworkers. We need to work in conjunction with the Biden-Harris team.
And those local officials work up to the state level, and they change hearts and minds throughout the state. And some of those go further up into national politics. So you have to vote all up and down the line, and not just for Biden-Harris. You have to vote for everybody, and you have to make sure everybody gets out to vote. The groundswell that we had under the Bush administration erupted into the Shepard-Byrd Act and into getting rid of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, etc. And then now for this last 4 years, we have the same situation. We have the groundswell, and we have to take that and turn that into action. And it's up to you to do so. Vote, vote, vote. And please, with the chaos we're having now with the Postal Service, if you're going to vote by mail, do it early. And get everybody else to do the same. You have to get the vote out. And it's better if we can get it done by mail ballots in case the weather is bad, which will really hinder people getting out to stand in line, especially with the social distancing that is really required and important right now, to stand out there in long lines when you have a chance to vote all up and down the line, and do it at home and then mail in your vote, or else take it in and drop it off.
Again, we appreciate you inviting us to be a part of this today, to make us welcome in the LGBT community, even when we lost Matt. Thank you so much. We appreciate everything you've done for us.
We're so proud of what you're doing and what you will do in the future. So keep up the good work and never give up. We want equality, we want encouragement, and we want it across the board.
And stay safe.
And stay safe.
Thank you so much. That was great to hear from you. And you brought me to tears the other night, so thank you. Up next, we have Representative Angie Craig, representing Minnesota's 2nd Congressional District. She is fighting for working families and for Minnesota, where every member of every family gets a fair shot. Rep. Craig learned the value of hard work from her mother, a single mom who raised 3 children while earning her teaching degree. She too worked 2 jobs to help herself through college. Years later, she moved to Minnesota and fell in love with the strong communities and quality of life. In Congress, Rep. Craig is fighting to make sure career skills and technical education is an option for every young person, to lower the cost of healthcare and to work toward a solution that expands healthcare to many more Americans, for infrastructure investments that benefit our communities, and for policies that reward people for their hard work, especially family farmers and small business owners. She plans to pursue these priorities through her appointments on the House Committees on Agriculture, Transportation and Infrastructure, and Small Business. Please welcome U.S. Representative Angie Craig.
Well, hello, everyone, and good afternoon. It is such an honor to be here speaking to you today. You know, I was the 23rd race called on election night that a Democrat defeated a Republican in the 2018 election. And to win this seat, I had to run against a former right-wing radio host turned congressman who actually said that he doesn't believe the LGBTQ community should be parents. Well, I am the first lesbian mother to serve in the U.S. Congress in the history of this nation. And I am the first member of the delegation from the state of Minnesota who identifies as LGBTQ. You know, it is such an honor to be able to represent, and we saw why representation matters so much last night as Kamala Harris delivered that beautiful, beautiful speech. You know, it wasn't easy to run against an opponent like mine, but it sure did make winning all the more satisfying when a lesbian mother of 4 took this slightly Republican seat in Minnesota in 2018. You know, this was all the motivation that I needed, but, you know, supply chains, infrastructure, fixing the roads, those are the topics that I talk about the most as a member of Congress. Healthcare, getting to where we need to be with universal healthcare. But after defeating my opponent a few months in, I was able to preside over the House floor during the last hour of debate on the Equality Act. What an amazing honor to have myself had to fight as a young woman for the right to adopt our oldest son, Josh. And now I'm standing on the House floor presiding. And as those on the other side made the arguments of why the LGBTQ community in our nation shouldn't have full equality, I made sure as I was presiding that they had to look me straight in the eye, no pun intended, as they made those arguments. See, the LGBTQ community, we've been fighting for a long time for many of these rights. And when we take back the White House, when we control the Senate, and when we return the majority to the U.S. House of Representatives, we are finally going to pass the Equality Act. On that day, I felt a sense of accomplishment, even though we knew that legislation was headed to Mitch McConnell's desk to gather dust, that we had struck a blow finally for equality in this nation. But that victory was only made possible by the tremendous support of lawmakers that each of you helped elect in the 2018 election and the majority that we brought in 2018. See, the 116th Congress has been revered as the most diverse Congress in American history, with more women, more people of color, Native women, and the LGBTQ community than any point in our nation's history. When we have a strong, broad range of voices at the table with life experience, just like those of our constituents, we are a stronger America. We need those voices to be represented in order to move forward with important policies like the Equality Act. But for that to happen, we've got to keep winning this November. We're going to defend our House majority. We're going to take back the Senate. We're going to elect Joe Biden to be the next president of the United States. It's an honor to be in this fight with you. And thank you so much for having me here today.
Good day, Democrats. I'm Laurence Zakson, one of the 20 elected members of the Democratic National Committee from California and the secretary of the DNC's LGBT Caucus. California is fired up for Biden-Harris, and we are very excited about holding on to the 7 seats we need to make sure that we keep the House in the hands of Speaker Pelosi. When I first joined the Democratic National Committee, 2 people went way out of their way to make me feel welcome. One of them was Ray Buckley. The other was the late chair of our caucus, Rick Stafford. So Ray's always had a special place in my heart. A former executive director of the New Hampshire Democratic Party, Ray is its chair and has been since 2007. He's transformed New Hampshire politics. In addition, Ray has been the president of the Association of State Democratic Party Chairs. He held that position for 3 terms. In that position, he was the vice chair, one of the vice chairs of the Democratic National Committee. Ray is also an incredible leader in our community, and it's my pleasure to introduce Representative Ray Buckley. I did want to talk for just a second about how incredibly moving it was for us to hear from the Shepards. I had the opportunity to participate in a march under the Bush administration with Mrs. Shepard, and it was a very great opportunity to chat, and she exudes the same warmth in person that you are getting here through the meeting. So And I also wanted to give a shout out to our chair, Earl Folks, who has done a great job with this program. So it looks like we are having a problem getting Representative Buckley back. And let's see what is going on. Seems like he's coming back, and we'll hear from first Representative Buckley and then from Chris Pappas. And Ray, you're on.
Great. Thank you so much. I think it's important once again to mention the name of Rick Stafford and Bab Sifferstein. For so many years, they were the two individuals that were so meaningful. Rick is the first outstate chair elected in 1993, and longtime member of the DNC and chair of this caucus. And then Babs, of course, making history in 2009 when she became the first trans member of the DNC. And their passing in the last 2 years has been a reminder to all of us to live our lives to the fullest. And if we can live them anywhere close to as full as both Rick and Babs, we'll have a life well lived. You know, since Rick's election as chair 27 years ago, there have been 19 other LGBTQ individuals elected as state chair and 15 others elected as vice chair. When I was elected vice chair of New Hampshire in 1999, I was the only out chair or vice chair. And still, when I was elected chair 8 years later, I was the only out chair. In 2009, when the Association of State Parties elected me as president, I was the only state chair as well, and ultimately becoming the first out vice chair of the DNC. So it was pretty remarkable that we've made it this far. But there are only 20 states that represents. That means there are 37 states and territories that have not elected an out chair or vice chair. Of course, Vermont takes the cake. They've elected 3 outstate chairs, so they're doing pretty terrific. I just want to do a shout out to the current state chairs, Eric Racer-Schramm of Delaware, of course, Van Beechler, who from Idaho that we're hearing from, Casey Hansen of Oregon, Terry Anderson of Vermont, and Tina Pawlowski of Washington State. And then our current vice chairs are Patricia Todd of Alabama, Eric Russell of Connecticut, Mark Lachey of Michigan, and Christine Quinn of New York, and David Green in Washington State. I beg you to consider running for chair, to consider running for vice chair. Critically important to have strong voices at the table. And especially during the next 8 years of the Biden-Harris administration, it's going to be an important time that we are at the table. These are terrific folks. I've got to know them over the years, and I'm very, very pleased and proud of what they're going to do for us and how we're going to work with them. But it's going to be so much better for them to have us sitting there as well. So with that, I want to thank everyone for their support of all of us. This is my 10th convention, and I'm so pleased to see the size of the delegation that we have this time. You know, the previous 4 conventions, there's been a young guy from New Hampshire sitting in the audience. He's not sitting in the audience of anywhere anymore. As a delegate from New Hampshire, he always dutifully attended these caucuses. No one asked him to speak, but today we are very excited that he's going to be able to be one of our speakers as our member of Congress, the first out member of the congressional delegation from New Hampshire. Now, he says I met him in 1996 when he was a high school volunteer. I don't remember that, but I do remember when he ran for the legislature just after graduating from Harvard when he was 22 years old, and the impact that he made as an out member of the legislature at 22. And we're so proud that he's now in Congress leading the fight for the Equality Act. So much of the efforts that we really need a strong voice for in Washington. And of course, he's doing a terrific job. He's also representing a Trump district, so he's going to need all your help in his reelection for a second term as well. So it's my honor to introduce my congressman, Christopher Pappas.
Thank you very much, Chairman Buckley. It's great to see you, and no one loves conventions more than Ray. You can tell that by the backdrop that he has behind him. And to be able to be with Ray at a convention is quite an experience. I know that these LGBT caucus have been so well attended throughout the years. And so I miss the fact that we're not all together enjoying each other's company. I know everyone is staying safe, and I hope you all will stay well these next few critical months. What we're missing out on right now is going to be just a drop in the bucket when we win in November and experience the thrill of victory and realize the full promise of our country and ensure that we can make progress again. So even though we're apart from one another today, I hope that we can all continue to stand together. That's going to be so important to know that we can continue the march toward progress that we're on. Regardless of who you were campaigning for in the primary, it's important that we stick together. We have such great opportunities to support Democrats, including out LGBTQ Democrats who are running up and down the ticket. I don't have to tell you that we've got the opportunity to elect the gayest Congress in history, even following our record gains for the 116th Congress, where we have the largest LGBTQ equality caucus in history, accompanied by the largest group of allies in history. So we are making great strides. For me, if you had told me when I was 22, right out of college, that I would someday be serving my home state as a member of Congress, an out member of Congress, I probably wouldn't have believed you. But in that same sort of category of things you wouldn't have believed, if you would have said in 2015, when we were making such tremendous strides during the Obama administration, that in a couple of years, Donald Trump would be president, working to undo and reverse everything we had fought so hard for, we probably wouldn't have believed that either. And so I think history and the future itself is so unpredictable. We know we're on this uneven march. Some days we take steps forward, some days we try to hang on to what we've got, and some days we brace for what's next. And after years of setbacks, it's time to get our country moving again. It's time to march forward. As Ray said, I'm the first openly gay person elected to Congress in my state. So this fight is really personal to me. It's unconscionable that we can still wake up in a country every day where there are no federal laws banning discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation or gender identity. That's just unacceptable. And that should be the fuel that drives us to continue to organize, to educate, and to fight for a more just future. That future has got to include passing the Equality Act. Like every other good idea in Washington, it sits on Mitch McConnell's desk. And that's not because of a lack of support among the American people, by the way. We're winning that fight in the hearts and minds of the American people. The Equality Act is supported by a majority of voters in each and every state. We just need to win this election and get the political will to get this over the finish line. So we've got to win in November. Our community has real power, and we shouldn't underestimate it. There are 11 million LGBTQ voters across the country, tens of millions of pro-equality voters who rank equality at the top of their list. And let's not forget how close the last election was. Trump won a few states, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, by just a handful of votes. He lost my state, New Hampshire, by just about 3,000 votes. So LGBTQ turnout, especially in these key districts, in these key states, is so pivotal to a Joe Biden and Kamala Harris victory. It's so pivotal to flipping the Senate and making sure that we keep the House. So I don't really have to tell all of you the ways in which Donald Trump and Mike Pence have been a disappointment, have been the opposite of allies to our LGBTQ community. We have had a full accounting of that the last 4 years. You'd probably have to be living in a log cabin somewhere to not have heard about the ways this administration has hurt our community, from their transgender military service ban to trying to reinstitute discrimination in the healthcare space. We can't afford any additional steps backwards. So let's turn this moment around. Let's make sure we can move forward together. It's so critical that we elect Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, but it's so critical that we build a bench for this party, that we elect Democrats up and down the ticket, including our wonderful out candidates. So everything is on the line here. We've got to keep fighting like our lives depend on it, because they do. And we've got to focus our efforts on those districts and those states where we can truly make a difference in the final analysis. So let's leave no Democrat behind, leave no opportunity behind to elect allies this fall. And I'm convinced if we do, progress is going to be on the agenda in January of next year. So thanks for what you all do. Thanks for adding such vibrancy to the Democratic Party. This party belongs to all of us. This convention is ours. This country is ours too. And together we can really make an inclusive future that recognizes the dignity of each and every person among us. Thanks very much. I'll turn it back over.
I have a message for Ray Buckley. I hope he's still listening. I just got a message from the LGBT person in Hawaii Democratic Party, and he just informed me that they just elected the first out person, and Tyler Dos Santos is the first out chair of the Hawaii Party. So I just want to add one more to the list. So we're growing even as we having our caucus meeting, we're adding more people on. So I have an opportunity to introduce someone who I met several years ago. Chris Walton. He's a young man in Milwaukee. He's born and raised in Milwaukee, and he is a powerhouse. He's the young man who's the chair of the Milwaukee County Democratic Party. He's the youngest chair of the party in Milwaukee, and he's the only gay county chair, and he's probably one of the few Black gay county chairs in the United States. And he's worked in many campaigns, including his own campaign. He's worked for Obama and worked for the mayor's campaign, the governor's campaign. He's just a political powerhouse, and he loves politics. And he loves being a Democrat, and I'm very happy to afford him the opportunity to speak to us today.
Thank you so much, Earl. It is a pleasure to be here with all of you. First of all, welcome to Milwaukee. It is an honor to be here to speak with you all as the chair of the Democratic Party of Milwaukee County. And it is truly a pleasure to have this convention virtually here in the city of Milwaukee. Even though we are unable to be here in person together, I'm so very happy to have you all here. And I want to make sure that we are making sure that we are fighting for the issues that the LGBT community represents. You know, one of the things that here in Milwaukee, I've had a chance to, as a gay Black man from the north side of this city, is to be an example and be a representative for this community. A lot of people like me don't get to be in leadership positions here in the city of Milwaukee and nationwide. One of the things that I'm very happy to be is elected as the chair of this party back in 2017 and re-elected back in 2019. But I also want to make sure that going forward, we are represented in every aspect, in every walk of life that we are, and to represent the intersectionality of being a Black gay man in politics. Because not only do I represent the LGBT community, I also represent the African American community. And today I am located here at Red Arrow Park, where we had a situation where police violence took the life of Dontre Hamilton. And I want to make sure that we take a moment to say that Black lives matter, and we say that all Black lives matter, because we cannot forget the members of the trans community who we have lost, especially Black trans women. So I want to make sure that we acknowledge them. And I also want to make sure that we thank you all for being here and for choosing Milwaukee. It is an honor, and we are here fighting, because one of the first times I had a chance to vote here in the state of Wisconsin was to vote against the marriage equality ban. And since then, being involved in politics, I've constantly stayed involved, working on LGBT issues, working to make sure that we are testing people, making sure that we are bringing the resources here into the community that are important to make sure that we are living our best lives. And so I want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank you all for having me. I want to thank Chairman Foltz for being an amazing representative and somebody I look forward to continuing to follow as the days and years come ahead. And I want to thank everybody for being involved. And I look forward to helping Vice President Biden and Senator Harris secure the state of Wisconsin's electoral votes this upcoming November, because equality is on the ballot. And especially being here in the state of Wisconsin, where we will decide the next president, we have to make sure that we're electing people who actually care about this community. You know, I remember growing up and having people in the White House who wanted to fight for the issues that were important to us, fighting for marriage equality, ending the don't ask, don't tell, making sure that members of the trans community can serve the nation that they love in our military, instead of having these constant threats and pushbacks and attacks from this president. I look forward to having Vice President Biden and Vice President Harris fighting for the members of this community and for the people of the state of Wisconsin. And it's extremely important that we get out to vote here in the state of Wisconsin, because we only lost last time by about 22,000 votes. And we have to make sure we get those 22,000 votes back and bring in another 100,000 on top of that. So I thank you all for this opportunity to speak, and let's go win this election. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Chris, for those words. You know, Chris is one of the young people who are going to be a powerhouse, who are going to be taking over leadership in our party someday. And we have another young man named Sam Dotson who did the Pledge of Allegiance. He's a high school senior in South Carolina. And even though he's a high school senior, he has quite an impressive record for advocacy on behalf of LGBT issues, on behalf of school reform issues. And recently, the Democratic National Party made the high school Democrats an official part of the party, and they have a seat on the party, and Sam Dotson will be one of those representatives, and he will be the youngest member of the LGBT Caucus. And I want to say in advance, before we have our meeting in January, welcome to the DNC, and welcome and thank you for your work and advocacy on behalf of young people around the United States. We can't win unless we have the youth vote, and we need more people like Sam to lead those efforts in that community for us. Sam, thank you.
Thank you so much, Earl, for that warm welcome and introduction. First of all, I also want to thank the DNC for giving us this seat on the party and giving us this opportunity to represent the youth, who a lot of times in many communities have no one to look to in the party and no one to look to in their communities. Before I get started, I want to take a moment to recognize all of those who have come before me and paved the way for the LGBTQ community and Gen Z in this country. I would not be here today at all if it were not for the members of the LGBTQ activists who have fought their way through the courts, activists like Marsha P. Johnson, the Stonewall activists, and all of those who have paved the way for us to be here. In addition to that, I want to take a moment to remember and recognize all of the transgender, Black, Indigenous, women of color who have lost their lives and faced violence and murder within this country. As someone who has grown up queer in a conservative community in South Carolina and during an anti-LGBTQ presidency, politics has become a necessity. Here in Greenville, my county council recently was confronted about an anti-LGBTQ policy, and the council responded, "Let's have a debate about it." But as a member of the LGBTQ community, our lives and our identities are not up for debate. Although people's beliefs change every single day, we will be members of this community from the day we are born to the last day of our lives, and that is not up for debate. If we elect Trump, we are committing to a national culture of hate and a culture of debating human lives and anti-human beliefs, and that is something we have to put a stop to right now. As a high school Democrat in America, we are rewriting the social constructs and rewriting the stereotypes and expectations that have long lived with us in this community and country. The work we're doing this fall is more than just electoral. It's not just a seat. We are electing someone who is going to, immortalize people who will fight for us in the court system and stop the stereotypes and harmful hatred that we see on the news, we see on Twitter, and we see on every single platform day to day. It is so important that the youth gets mobilized as a coalition and the biggest coalition of youth LGBTQ voters to ever come to this country and get Trump out of office. A vote for Biden and Harris is a vote for change, and that's something we really need as LGBTQ members in this country. Even the small steps like seeing Senator Harris have pronouns in her bio is something that is giving so much hope to LGBTQ youth across the country who really do not have anyone to look to. With this ticket, we are quite literally saving lives of LGBTQ folks who are young and who might not be supported by their families or anyone at all. So please join me in the High School Democrats of America at hsdems.org in voting for Biden Harris this fall and supporting Dems up and down the ballot. Thank you so much, Earl, for this opportunity. It really does mean a lot. Thank you.
Thanks, Sam. That was very inspiring. And we really do need young people to volunteer, to work as poll workers, and to get out and vote. So thank you very much for that. Our next speaker is another trailblazer, State Representative Leslie Herod of Colorado. When elected in 2016, Representative Herod was the first LGBTQ African American member of the Colorado General Assembly, where she now chairs the Finance Committee, Committee on Legal Services, and Black Democratic Legislative Caucus, while also serving as the vice chair of the Judiciary Committee. I don't know how she sleeps. Please join me in welcoming an accomplished and distinguished legislator, Representative Leslie Herod.
Hello, everyone. I am State Representative Leslie Herod. I am so proud to be here representing Denver, Colorado, as the first African-American LGBTQ person to hold elected office in Colorado. Laurence, thank you so much for that introduction. And Earl, thank you for believing in me since I was a young buck in my 20s. I've appreciated watching your leadership and your steadfast work for the LGBTQ and Black communities. So thank you, Earl. So listen, I'm here to give a rah-rah, because this is the DNC, about our amazing candidates for Vice President and President of the United States of America. But let me tell you something. I was elected November of 2016. So I gotta tell you, it was a very strange night for a lot of us, right? Where we actually were celebrating, when we were celebrating my election victory, we then heard of the victory of the president we have now. And quickly, our lives as state elected officials changed. What we thought we were going to be doing, well, the work that we thought we were going to be able to accomplish, all of a sudden shifted to how are we going to protect our communities? And we weren't wrong. What we found was we have a president in the White House who consistently and systemically has rolled back the progress that we have made every chance he could. That includes rolling back our access to healthcare, our ability to serve out and openly in the military. And I do come from a military family. Thanks, Mom. And so many other things. But also, he has created this division in our community where people like me and you are considered others, not good enough, and quite frankly, folks to be despised. That is not okay. What we need are leaders in the White House who will bring our nation together and value every single one of our voices. So when people say we got to vote this year like our lives depend on it, it is absolutely true. Across America, asylum seekers are being put in detention camps and told that they cannot find refuge here in our country, in America, even though they face death in their home countries just for being queer. We cannot allow that to stand. We need to go back to the core of who we are as Americans, which is a country that lifts all up, a country that welcomes in those who are seeking refuge, and a country that is proud of our leadership and the way that we show up in the world. So I am so proud to have been a part of Vice President Kamala Harris's initial campaign team as the Colorado chair and a supporter of Biden for many years. In fact, I have 44 tattooed on my wrist, reminding me every day that that is the type of leadership that we need in the White House. Listen, as LGBTQ people, it's our job to step up and get it done, not only for us, but for all of our communities. So I can't wait to see y'all on the campaign trail, maybe virtually or in person, but we got a lot of work to do. Let's not rest on our laurels and just think that we're gonna win because what they're doing in the White House is so despicable. We've got to prove it. We've got to fight. We've got to show up and vote no matter how many times they tell us not to or take away our access. We won't let it happen. So thank you so much for having me today. It's been such an honor. I can't wait to hear the rest of the program. Bye.
Thank you, Representative. Florida Representative Chevron Jones is a passionate leader in the arenas of youth and leadership development and also empowering youth to participate and catalyze social change. First elected to the Florida House in 2012, Representative Jones is a Democratic candidate for Florida's state Senate, where, if elected, he will be the first openly gay member. Representative Jones, I couldn't be more excited about introducing you to the caucus.
Thank you so much, and it's such a pleasure to be with all of you all today. You all just had one of my favorite people on a few minutes ago. Leslie, I love you and thank you so much for everything that you're doing. And I want to thank you all for having me here this afternoon. And I hope you and yours are staying healthy and safe during this ongoing public health and economic crisis. It's an honor to speak with all of you, Democrats from across the country during this historic week. As I mentioned, I'm current state representative from the great state of Florida, and I have the distinct honor of being the first Black gay lawmaker in the state house. Earlier this week, our team scored a decisive victory in our state Senate primary in a strongly Democratic South Florida district. And now we are on the path to make history alongside Joe Biden and Kamala Harris this November when Florida elects me as their first openly gay state senator. I was so proud to be an early supporter of Vice President Biden last year. When he got that race and we went to Iowa and I traveled the state campaigning and caucusing for him because I believed in Joe Biden. There's no question that Joe Biden is the most pro-equality presidential candidate in history and has a long record of fighting for our causes and everything we believe in far beyond the time frame of when this has became popular. Florida, the largest swing state in the country, is undeniably ready to go blue this November. And Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are the ticket to get it done and make sure Donald Trump is a single-term president. Joe Biden believes that every human being should be treated with respect and dignity and be able to live without fear, no matter who they are or who they love. From repealing Don't Ask, Don't Tell, all the way to marriage equality, Joe Biden has proven time and time again that he is the one that can lead us to victory. Listen to me. His plan will support LGBTQ youth, protect our communities from discrimination and violence, and make sure LGBTQ people can get high quality health care and ensure we have equal treatment in the criminal justice system. That commitment to dignity for all will be a sharp shift from Donald Trump and Mike Pence, who have rolled back critical protections and encouraged hate against the LGBTQ plus community. They have made it their mission to undo the progress of the Obama-Biden administration. I think what this moment in our country is showing, perhaps more than ever, is that it matters who people vote for and who is representing the people who you and I fight for each and every day. Here in Florida, the consequences of our elections have been at the center of the national conversation these past few months, as we've been at the center of the COVID crisis. And listen to me, as we've seen, the White House and governor's office, they have failed to lead when we needed leaders the most. At the end of the day, every Floridian and person across this country deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. And I'm committed to helping our community keep it forward until we live in a world where that's the case. Our community cannot afford four more years of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Get them to the White House so we can continue leading to victory. Thank you all so much.
Thank you very much for that, Representative Jones. That was very inspiring. My next guest, our next guest, is someone who you all know. She's an ally to our community. And I want to say three things about Senator Klobuchar. The first thing is that she's one of the few senators who can work on both sides of the aisle, which is a rarity these days. And that's much appreciated. We need more of that. And she comes from a long tradition of many popular senators from the great state of Minnesota. The second thing is that during the debates, I was at many of the debates, we had plenty of presidential debates, and Senator Klobuchar's voice was oftentimes a voice of reason, and her voice, her politics and her demeanor raised herself above a lot of the noise many times. And I was like, oh, this woman is something. She could be a president of the United States. I like her. And the third thing is that she had her opening event during a blizzard. And I said to my best friend, Jose, I said, you know what? This woman really wants to be president of the United States because she's doing this, opening up her campaign during a blizzard. And so, and the words of one of my favorite Minnesota senators, Hubert Humphrey, I'm pleased as punch to introduce Senator Amy Schultz.
Oh, thank you, Earl. No one's ever introduced me that way. That was so kind. And not everyone knows that was a hallmark of Hubert Humphrey. So thank you for that. And it is so great to see all of you and to celebrate with you this incredible ticket. It was personally meant so much to me to see Kamala cross that stage last night. We grew closer as the campaign went on, and I'm so pleased that she's on there, and they're going to be a great ticket. So, few things. Number one, I know I remember going at the last convention to the LGBTQ caucus parties, and I really miss this. I miss all the camaraderie. I've made up for it. I have my own sign for tonight, we try our best. I'm even ready in a pathetic fashion with my aviator glasses, to show solidarity. I know you want me to take these off now, Earl, and I will. I am also ready to hear his plans, because I think we have correctly diagnosed this problem in a big way. 33% reduction in GDP projected for the year, all the people that have died, and all the president says is it is what it is, as Michelle so beautifully reminded us during her remarks. But now we want to hear about the day after tomorrow. And the day after tomorrow, to me, means all next year. And it means getting the right people in place to deal with this pandemic. But it means so many things that you guys have been working on forever. It means the Equality Act, finally putting that into law. It means getting rid of these backwards policies of the Trump administration when it comes to our schools and it comes to trans issues. And it means stopping the divisiveness, which have led to these hate crimes. There's been a huge increase in hate crimes. I know this because I've asked the FBI director about this across our country. So I'm just psyched to get to that moment. And I think part of what we're doing right now is going out there and in the spirit of people like Angie Craig, who in Minnesota is the first openly LGBTQ member to be elected to Congress, and a really hard district, by the way, that had always been Republican. And she did it, and she's up for re-election. In the spirit of all of those incredible candidates that you've put forward that have won, we're going to win this race for them and for the people that they represent. So I really look at this as this march we've been on since the very beginning, starting the day after the inauguration of Donald Trump, when millions of people marched across this country peacefully. I go to day 9, when that mean-spirited refugee order came out and people spontaneously showed up at the airports. Day 100, my favorite march, the March for Science, with my favorite sign, what do we want science? When do we want it? After peer review. You move forward to that extraordinary moment where we defeated the repeal of the Affordable Care Act, where John McCain went in there and put the thumbs down because we had stayed united. And you know how much that meant to so many members of the LGBTQ community, especially our trans community, that rely on medication that they can get because of the Affordable Care Act and medical treatments. And then you go forward to the fall when Danica Rome won in Virginia, in Minneapolis, where we now have 2 trans people on the Minneapolis City Council. When you look at one of my favorite races along the way, when the guy in New Jersey, the day of the Women's March, had said, I hope they'll be home in time to make dinner. That guy got defeated, a legislator, by an African-American woman. That is the march that we are on. And it doesn't end just because we're remote and doing this in the middle of a pandemic. One of Donald Trump's favorite sayings that you probably heard him say is he says, people are saying, remember? He's like, people are saying my face should be on Mount Rushmore, right? People are saying that the economy is going really well. Well, he must be talking to different people than I'm talking to, because the people that I'm talking to are saying, my kid, I don't know how I'm going to educate him this fall. And I don't know, I'm in a rural area, I don't have broadband and I can't even get through, or I can't find childcare right now, or I lost my job when I've worked hard my whole life and I don't know what new job I'm going to have, Or, like I've got my daughter here with her boyfriend living at our house. Okay, I'm not even going into that. Or like everyone has these strange living arrangements. They're gone right now, so I can say it. Or we've got my dad who got COVID, and I'm looking at him through a glass window at age 92, and I don't know if I'm going to see him again, and he miraculously gets through it. But I will never forget that moment of standing outside, and he is in an Alzheimer's ward. He knows who we are, but he cannot figure out why he's alone in this room and why we're wearing masks. And to have a president that says it is what it is. That's what he said. So for me, it's personal. So people ask why our conventional is so personal, our convention, and why we've got an incredible moment like the Shepard family, who I got to meet when I was a young prosecutor, why they come forward and talk about Matthew and do the roll call, because it is personal, right? This whole thing is personal to people. And tonight is our big night where we give them not only the case against Donald Trump, but Joe Biden shows what he's going to do in the future and what we're going to do together. And we're not going to be able to do it without all of you. So I want to thank you for taking a few minutes to include me in your incredible program. I see our next speaker waiting, but I just so loved seeing you. And I want to be with you in person very soon under a new administration. Thanks, everybody.
Wow.
A lot in 5 minutes.
Wow. I have the opportunity to introduce another rising star within our party, Gina Ortiz-Jones. I met her several years ago. She's running for Congress in the Texas 23rd District. She served in the military as an intelligence officer, and God knows we need some of that expertise in Washington. And she served in the Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And in the 2016 election, she lost by 1,000 votes. So we know that this time around, she's going to win. I'm looking forward to seeing her in Washington next year as a member of Congress representing the 23rd District, Gina Ortiz-Jones.
Great. Well, good afternoon. I'm Gina Ortiz-Jones, running in Texas's 23rd congressional district. And depending on where you are in the country, that's like Manhattan to Raleigh, North Carolina. Let me back up. It's from San Antonio to El Paso, 500 miles across, right? So that's like Manhattan to Raleigh, Chicago to Memphis, or San Francisco to San Diego. It's a large district, larger than 30 states. I would be honored to represent this district in Congress. I'm an Air Force veteran, Iraq War veteran, but my story really starts over 40 years ago. My mom came to this country. She graduated from the #1 university in the Philippines, but wanted a chance at the American dream. And like so many knew that in order to live your best possible life, you might have to leave your home country. And for her, that meant coming to our very special country. So she reminded my younger sister and I every single day that we were very lucky to be born in this country, not smart, lucky to be born in this country. We'd have to find a way to give back to a country that gave us so much. That's why I served in the Air Force, served in national security for almost 15 years. And it's why my sister serves in the Navy to this day. I will never forget one of the very first things I had to do at Boston University. It was an Air Force ROTC scholarship that allowed me to get an education. And one of the first things I had to do was sign a piece of paper that said, I will not engage in homosexual behavior, because even as a cadet, Don't Ask, Don't Tell applied to me. So my opportunity to get an education, my opportunity to serve our country, my opportunity to die for our country, if need be, all that goes away just because at the time there weren't enough people with the courage to say anybody ready and willing to serve their country should be able to do so. So as I look forward to representing part of Military City USA, which is San Antonio, national security for me will always mean, yes, our tanks and our ships and our planes, but would also be the pipeline of talent into serving our country. Anybody ready and willing should be able to do so. And I will soon find out if I'm running against the Ted Cruz endorsed candidate or the Donald Trump endorsed candidate. Both of these folks have been clear that they are not interested in serving all Americans. Frankly, they're more interested in rolling back our hard-fought progress. We can't afford to let that happen. There's just too much at stake. We are done waiting for for full equality. We can have that, right? We've got to flip this seat. We've got to flip the Senate. And we know with Vice President Kamala Harris and with the President Joe Biden that passing the Equality Act is something that is within reach, and making sure that, again, we are treating everyone in our country with dignity and respect. I want to thank you for your time, for your support. Again, Gina Ortiz-Jones running in Texas's 23rd Congressional District. I look forward to being the first out member of Congress from Texas ever, but it's more important I'm not the last, and it's most important, my community is finally well represented. Thank you so much.
So flipping Texas is a very important task for us, and thank you for that. Some of you will remember Michigan State House member John Hoadley from his days as executive director of National Stonewall Democrats. And Representative Hoadley still is a public affairs professional advocating for LGBT rights. In his third term, Representative Hoadley is the Democratic vice chair of the Michigan House Appropriations Committee and the Fiscal Agency Governing Committee. A small business owner and an inspiring leader in so very many ways, it is my great privilege to introduce to you John Hoadley.
Well, thank you, Laurence. I really appreciate it. Thanks everybody for being here. Like you said, my story is rooted in community. It's rooted in our community. I've spent over 18 years of my life advocating for LGBTQ equality. And one of those lessons that we learn doing that work is that when we come together, we are powerful and we are strong. And I put those skills then to use on a wider scale when I became a state representative. Now I'm running for Congress in Michigan's 6th congressional district. And if elected, I'd be the first ever openly LGBTQ member of Congress elected from our state. It's been incredible to see the strides that we've made towards equality, watching as we've tackled big issues like getting rid of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, or overturning the Defense of Marriage Act. But the guy I'm running against, and in fact, has been there and supported those issues over his 34 years. Frankly, he's been on the wrong side of almost every single equality issue. Now, here's the other good thing I know. Joe Biden has been an active part of the work that we're doing for non-discrimination throughout his career. So electing Vice President Kamala Harris and other pro-equality candidates up and down the ballot is how we're going to bring real change to our communities this November. My partner, Chris, has multiple sclerosis. And getting that diagnosis was one of the scariest moments of my life, finding him on the floor, barely able to move, navigating a healthcare system that oftentimes it has weighted towards the insurance companies than the people that are just trying to get healthy. Joe Biden is going to fight for healthcare, and he's going to make sure that that is a healthcare that does not discriminate because of who you are or who you love. In Michigan, it's still technically illegal to get married if you are a person of the same sex, but for a Supreme Court decision that made marriage equality legal. If that ruling went away, then so would those protections. And I know that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are going to appoint pro-equality judges. Our state continues to see the ravages of healthcare, justice, and economic systems that produce disparate outcomes just based on your race. And I know that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris will work on issues of systemic racism and inequality. And I want to be a partner in every single one of these fights. So I want to say this, we need your help today. We cannot let cynicism, apathy, or dirty tricks keep people from the polls. So please make a plan to vote. Encourage your friends and family to vote, because fairness and equality are on the ballot. And with your help, we're going to win.
I have the pleasure to introduce someone who's going to be a major force in our country. And actually, I'm tingling. I'm so excited because we have Doug Imhoff, who is the husband of Senator Harris, and he's going to speak to us. And, he's an attorney. He's with DLA Piper Law Firm, and he's taking a leave of absence so he can concentrate on getting his wife elected and Vice President Biden elected. But, I was debating with my friends when they get elected, November 3rd, and he's sworn in, Harris and Biden are sworn in on January 20th. What do we call Mr. Inhofe? Do we call him the second spouse? The first? I heard he was the second gentleman. And, we have time to figure that out between now and election day. But we got to figure this out, because this is unprecedented. This is historic, and I'm so proud to be part of this history. And I'm looking forward to hearing from you now. And I'm sure when you figure out what your pet projects are going to be, we're going to hear from you many, many times over the next 4 to 8 years.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, for that warm introduction. I'm so glad to be here with all of you to support Joe Biden as our next president and my wife, Kamala Harris, as the next vice president of the United States. But okay, time for some real talk first. Being out here on the presidential campaign trail, talking about Joe and Kamala is not something I ever really expected to be doing. So a little bit about me. I was born in Brooklyn, raised in New Jersey, and then moved to LA in high school when my dad got a new job. I went on to college and law school in LA, became a dad to Cole and Ella, who you met last night, and joined a great career as an entertainment lawyer. I'm now on leave, as the chairman said, from my firm, so I can work full time to help Joe and Kamala win. But that entertainment career also led me here to you today, because I met Kamala on an old school blind date set up by a potential client. Long story short, when we first got set up, I was so excited that I somehow lost my ability to play it cool, and ended up sending her texts and voicemails that she loves to tease me about now. She still plays one of the voicemails I left her out loud every anniversary, which is coming up this Saturday, because it's so embarrassing. But somehow she agreed to go on that first date, and then a second, and before we knew it, I asked her to marry me, and she said yes. And by the way, we hadn't been engaged all that long before I got a congratulatory voicemail from none other than Joe Biden. He is such a great guy, and believe it or not, I still have that message saved on my phone. Well, as I said, we'll be married 6 years this Saturday, and we've become one big, happy, modern family, just trying to make it work like everyone else. And over the past several years, with Ella, who you met, just starting her senior year in college, and Cole going on with his own entertainment career, I've watched as Kamala has gone from not only their beloved Mamala, but has also become a real confidant to them as they're moving into their adult lives. They value her advice and support, and I never see Kamala happier than when she's cooking with them on a Sunday night, or these past few months with the frequent Zooms, FaceTimes, and calls. I've also seen her in action as godmother to some very special kids who call her auntie, her nieces to whom she adores, and she keeps in very close touch with. Now, it should come as no surprise to you that in addition to being a great mom, I am confident that my wife, Kamala Harris, will make a great vice president. And I can go on and on and on about what she and Joe were going to do in the job, how they're going to get this virus under control. They're going to fix our economy and make sure it rewards work instead of just wealth. And they're going to build this country back better than ever before. But lots of people can tell you what Kamala will do. I'm here to talk about who she is. Hopefully you heard about this in her speech last night, but if you want to understand Kamala, the first thing you need to know is that she's the daughter of immigrants. Her parents came to this country from opposite sides of the world. Her father from Jamaica, her mother from India. They met as students at Berkeley while they were both marching in the civil rights movement in the early 60s. Kamala's mother, who she talked about so lovingly last night, Shamala, used to tell her, don't just sit around and complain about things, do something. She taught Kamala it was up to every generation to continue this fight for justice. So when it came time for Kamala to go to college, she followed in the great Thurgood Marshall's footsteps and went to Howard University, where she proudly joined the Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. And afterwards, she began her trailblazing legal career in California. In 2003, she became the first woman and the first person of color ever elected as district attorney of San Francisco, where she fought for victims who needed help and created one of the first reentry programs to end the cycle of recidivism. In 2011, Kamala made history again, becoming the first woman and first person of color elected Attorney General of California, where she stood up time and time again to powerful forces. She took on the big banks and won. She took on big oil and polluters and won. She took on for-profit colleges scamming students and won. And when it comes to this great community, Kamala has never wavered in her support. As Attorney General, she filed brief after brief on behalf of marriage equality. She took on those powerful interests that were trying to keep people who love each other apart, and she refused to defend the unconstitutional Prop 8 in California. She performed the first same-sex marriage in California after Prop 8 was defeated of Chris Perry and Sandy Steyer. I was by her side. I saw it all. I'm so proud of her. In 2016, she was elected to the United States Senate and sworn in by another early advocate of marriage equality, Joe Biden. And you've seen her in action in the Senate these past several years, sponsoring the Do No Harm Act to ensure religion can never be used to discriminate against this great community, and joining Joe to stand up against Trump's unconscionable transgender military ban, co-sponsoring the Equality Act to end discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity once and for all. And as you know, Joe has long been committed to signing this into law once he is president. Every day, Kamala's been fighting for justice on behalf of the only client she's ever had, the people, all the people, no matter how they identify or who they love. And that's who she and Joe Biden will fight for every single day when they're in the White House. As Joe says, this is more than an election. It's a battle for the soul of our nation. And the only way we'll win is if we follow the lead of Joe and Kamala, who have devoted their lives to public service and give it all we've got every single day until November 3rd. I know I will. So register to vote right now at iwillvote.org. And if you think you've already registered, double check and make sure your information is up to date. Visit joebiden.com and text Joe to 30330 and get involved in this campaign with us. Everything we care about is on the line. And as Kamala has said, we need to do more than win. We need a mandate that shows this president doesn't define who our country is or who we should be. We are so much better than this, and it's on us to prove it. Thank you so much. We've got to elect Joe and Kamala. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. We're really excited for Kamala to be our vice president, and thank you for being here. All right, up next, we have Bryce Bennett, Montana State Senator, Idaho's neighbor, so I'm really excited to introduce him. Bryce is a fifth-generation Montanan and state senator. Bryce worked across the aisle to defend access to public lands and protect the health care of over 90,000 Montanans, invest in Montanans' infrastructure. When special interest dark money groups came into Montana, Bryce worked with Republicans and Democrats and led the charge to pass the nation's leading anti-dark money law to ensure the only voice that matters on election day is Montana voters. The Montana ambassadors named Bryce their Legislator of the Year for his effective work to battle dark money and to ensure that elections are always accountable to the people, not out of state special interests. Bryce founded the Montana Privacy Caucus by bringing together Republicans and Democrats in the legislature to combat the overreach of government and corporations into our personal lives. Together, the caucus has passed a series of bills which protect Montanans' private data. Please welcome Montana State Senator Bryce Bennett.
Well, hello, everyone, and thank you so much, Van. My name is Bryce Bennett. I'm a fifth-generation Montanan from rural eastern Montana. I'm a state senator, a lifelong voting rights advocate, and I was the first openly gay man ever elected to our legislature. The town I grew up in is like a lot of small towns across the nation. There were barely 400 people there when I lived there, and the school fit kindergarten through high school down one hallway. We knew each other, we looked out for each other, and we worked together and got things done. You know, I didn't know I was gay then, and it wasn't until high school that I came out. I didn't know that I would ever run for office at that point, and to be honest, it didn't seem like that would even be possible in a state like Montana. We were a lot closer to the murder of Matthew Shepard in neighboring Wyoming than marriage equality becoming the law of the land. But despite the tremendous challenges that folks like us faced back then, I still wanted to get involved. I still wanted to help change things. And that's why I got involved in politics. I started by registering Montans to vote, going out in knee-deep snow and pouring rain to help ensure that everyone had a say in Montana's future. I registered Republicans and Democrats and independents. Party didn't matter, because I believed then, as I believe now, that all Montanans deserve to have their voices heard on Election Day. And that's what a Secretary of State does. They are on the front lines of our democracy, ensuring that out-of-touch politicians, foreign hackers, and even folks like the Postmaster General aren't able to damage the integrity of our democracy or people's faith in it. It's the work I've been passionate about for the decade I've spent in the Montana legislature, and for the LGBTQ plus community, it has special relevance. It's about making sure that no one is left out of our democracy, no matter who you are, where you live, what you look like, or who you love. It's about making sure that LGBTQ plus business owners know they have a friend and ally when they first set up shop in a state that hasn't always welcomed them in. And it's about making sure that our state works for all Montanans. And certainly it's about representation. When I grew up, there weren't a whole lot of people in government who I could look up to. We weren't shown the people who struggled with the burden of coming out in a conservative state. There weren't people who I could say, look at and see, things do get better after all. And I want that for kids who are struggling today. I want people to see Montana as the kind, welcoming state I know it to be. But that won't happen unless we do something bold in 2020. And with your help, we can make history by electing the first openly gay statewide elected official in Montana's history. But to do that, I need your voice and I need your help. With a president and countless special interest groups working to dismantle our democracy, we must elect new leaders like Joe Biden and Kamala Harris who will safeguard our constitutional right to vote. We need leaders who will fight against the dark money that's poisoning our political system and stands in the way of Americans having their voices heard. We need a Secretary of State who has stood up for LGBTQ plus Montanans on the floor of the legislature when out-of-touch politicians tried to legalize discrimination and move back the clock on equality. Someone who knows our story. These stakes are real. But sadly, we see far too many people choosing not to vote because they don't see the importance in a politics that is deeply negative, corrupted with dark money, and often out of touch with people who are struggling. And that's why I'm asking for your help. I hope that you will visit bennettformontana.com and learn more about our campaign to empower voters, to make history, and to ensure that every voice is heard and every vote is counted on Election Day. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Bryce. Being on the Democratic National Committee is not what most people think it is. It is kind of a thankless job. There's no perks. Lots of work, especially if you want to make a difference. But one of the big advantages is that you have the opportunity to meet and interact with great leaders from all 50 states and 7 territories. That's why I'm very privileged to introduce our next speaker, Travis Nelson of Oregon. He's one such person. A nurse, a union representative, an Oregon Nurses Association and Teamsters member, which as a Teamster lawyer is near and dear to my heart, and a member of the Democratic National Committee. Travis is a fighter for social justice, whether it's as a precinct captain, as chair of the Oregon Democratic Party Black Caucus, or many of his other volunteer efforts. Travis is one busy guy. To speak about the intersection of LGBTQ and labor rights, I'm proud to introduce someone that I've come to know, Travis Nelson. Thank you very much for the opportunity to introduce you.
Wow, thank you, Laurence, for the kind introduction. And I want to say thank you to you, Earl and Van, for your tremendous leadership of the LGBTQ plus caucus. It's been an honor serving on the DNC with you over these last 4 years. So when Earl first asked me to speak and told me that I had 5 minutes, I thought a lot about all of the things that I could talk about in my 5 minutes. In the end, I decided to boil my remarks down to 3 points. 1, I want you all to know that unions are under attack and workers are under attack in this country. The collective strength of unions is the only thing keeping corporations from completely running over the working class, and Trump and most Republicans know this. Trump ran for office telling unions that he was our candidate. He promised to be a good president for the poor and working class. And what did he do when he came into office? He appointed Supreme Court justices and NLRB members who crippled unions and protections for workers. He cut taxes on the wealthy and corporations, shifting the tax burden to the poor and working class, crippling the Affordable Care Act and the social safety net along the way. 4 more years of Trump would be a disaster for our country. Can you imagine what the world would look like if 45 got to replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg on the Supreme Court? That's a world that I don't even want to think about. But look, unions just don't lift up the wages of union workers. As a nurse, I've seen this on vivid display in areas where we have union hospitals. Wages and benefits are better, even at non-union hospitals, because of the upward pressure on wages that workers who have come together to collectively bargain exert. Even if you aren't in a union, you should support them. Two, if you aren't in a union, get one. Contact your local AFL-CIO office or your regional labor council for more information. And if you are in a union, get engaged. At their core, unions are democracies. But just like America, unions have their problems: racism, homophobia, sexism. Trust me, I know. I also know that people of color and LGBTQIA+ folks have to get engaged to make unions better. Run for an office in your local. Join a committee. Fight for equality and non-discrimination language in your collective bargaining agreement. And don't be afraid to ask questions. Ask, what does your union do for Pride Month? How is your union taking a stand for Black trans lives? What is your union doing for LGBTQ+ youth who are homeless? If you have been happy paying dues, sitting on the sidelines, get up and get in the game. Your union needs your voice. 3, now let's be frank. You're likely here because you are either a big Joe Biden supporter or you don't want 4 more years of Trump. Either way, you recognize the importance of getting Agent 45 out of the White House. And please know that you are needed. Too often, LGBTQ+ people are silenced, made to feel less than, and are fearful as a result of marginalization. Donald Trump has done nothing to make that better. But you know what? Joe Biden will. He has promised to sign the Equality Act, which would ban LGBTQ+ discrimination nationally. He will work hard to expand protections for trans and non-binary Americans. So, when you leave this convention and go home, oh wait, you're already home. Join a phone bank, do a lit drop, or take some type of meaningful action to make a difference this November. Hopefully that'll be with your union. You know, I was watching the caucus meeting on Tuesday with Mayor Pete, and he said something that really stuck with me. He said, progress isn't permanent. And you know, I believe him. It's not. We are only one Supreme Court justice away from witnessing marriage equality and other civil rights protections being stripped away. So I want to thank you for being delegates. I want to thank you for being leaders in your communities. And I want to thank you for fighting for a fairer America. Remember, no one is coming to save us from what we've experienced over these last 3 years and 213 days. We are the change we've been waiting for. So go forth and do everything that you can to get Joe Biden elected the next president of the United States. Thank you to caucus leadership.
Thank you very much, Travis, for those good words of inspiration and encouragement. We're at the end of our time, and I want to thank the Democratic National Convention Committee. I want to thank the DNC. I want to thank the Biden-Harris campaign. And I want to thank Van, Laurence, Matt, and Reggie for putting this together. I don't need to add anything else on to what everyone else has said. Tonight, we will receive our marching orders, and I look forward to seeing each and every one of you on January 20th, the inauguration of President Biden and Vice President Harris. Go forth and do our work. Take care. Thank you. Good morning to some of you, and good afternoon to those of you who live on the East Coast. My name is Earl Folks, and I'm the chair of the Democratic National Committee's LGBT Caucus, and I welcome you to our meeting. I officially proclaim this meeting open, and I want to welcome you on behalf of myself, Evangeline Beechler, our vice chair, and our secretary, Laurence Zakson, to the gayest political convention in history. We have 635 LGBTQ delegates, the most we've ever had. And we're gathered together virtually to nominate the most pro-LGBTQ plus equality ticket in the history of this great republic in Vice President Biden and Senator Harris. And we have an exciting meeting planned for you. And before I ask DNC member and convention delegate Dr. Richmond to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, I would ask that each of you will close your eyes for a moment and bow your heads in a moment of silence to remember the victims of transgender violence, not only in the United States, but around the world. Can we imagine a world where transphobia does not exist? Yes. Thank you very much. Dr. Richmond will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Hello, everybody. If you don't have a flag, I have flags here right in front of me. Please place your hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Richmond. And you'll be hearing from Dr. Richmond and several of her colleagues later on this afternoon, I should say, as they have a very important workshop they will be working on for representing the transgender community. I have the distinct pleasure of introducing to you the junior senator from the state of Wisconsin, Tammy Baldwin. Tammy Baldwin has served at every level of government, from the local city council to a state committee to the state legislature in Wisconsin, as a congresswoman and then senator. And she may be the junior senator from Wisconsin, but I can assure you she's a senior senator for the LGBTQ plus community. And it's my distinct pleasure and honor to introduce to you the Honorable Senator Tammy Baldwin. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. And I want to start by providing everybody with a warm virtual welcome to the great state of Wisconsin, the city of Milwaukee. Obviously, this is not how we planned to convene, but what is so important is that we are all guided by a leader and a party that puts our public health and our individual health first. And so I'm just delighted to join the LGBTQ caucus of convention delegates and guests. And in that welcome to the state of Wisconsin for the convention, I also just want to do a little bit of bragging about my home state. Believe it or not, Wisconsin was the first state in the union to pass legislation protecting individuals on the basis of sexual orientation in matters of employment, education, public accommodations, and housing. And we were very proud of that distinction. It was back in 1982. And it was actually passed by both houses of the legislature and signed into law by a Republican governor. Who today can imagine that sort of bipartisan cooperation, et cetera, as things have only gotten more polarized? So we are very proud of that historic first. It took some years for the next state to, in turn, pass legislation of this sort. But now I want to just bring us right forward to our current moment where recently the United States Supreme Court has declared that Title VII of the Civil Rights Act includes protections in employment for members of the LGBTQ community.